Hey there, and welcome back to another My Hero Academia Season 7 review. And today we're going to be talking about the latest episode to drop, the season finale, Battle Without a Quirk, which serves to wrap up Toga and Uraraka's story, and also sees the fateful and final, and they mean it this time, the final confrontation and battle between All Might and All For One. Before we go any further, I would like to say that I have not read up to this point in the manga, so I'm pretty much flying blind on all of this. No spoilers, just speculation found within. So with all that being said, it's time to jump into the episode. We start off the episode with a recap of the final moments of the clash between Toga and Uraraka, where after getting pretty badly stabbed, Ochako's able to talk Toga down and stop her running rampant with Twice's quirk. We head into the intro theme, and upon our return, we're still with this storyline, and we're seeing just how close we came to having the likes of Ida, Endeavor, Hawks, Shoto and his siblings, and his mum, Tokoyami, a lot of key characters getting straight up murdered by the clones because they don't have the strength to fight back against them. Hawks even gets slashed by one of the clones as it fades away, probably because he's the one who killed Twice. But then we're back to Toga, where she's looking at Uraraka, who is, whilst actively dying, still doing her best to ensure that the heroes who were caught up in her gravity attack are lowered to the ground safely. Because she expended so much energy moving around and fighting against Toga, she's pretty much finished. As in, she's on the verge of death. And this was rather shocking to me, to tell you the truth. I didn't expect her to be this close to dying, and I had no idea how the hell the writing was going to pull her out of it. I mean, if they didn't make a big deal out of it, they could have just treated it like a Gran Torino situation where they cut away and she'd survived against the odds, but they didn't do that. They honed in on it. They showed her thoughts as she's dying, so when Toga walks over and starts thinking about how this is the world she wanted, the world that's free of expectation and rules and conformity, and how it's all so close, I was kind of curious as to how they were going to save Uraraka. And yet, despite her being on the cusp of victory, Toga decides to do a blood transfusion to give her all her blood so she'll be able to survive. And of course, Toga has to use her quirk to accomplish this, just like Twice did for Toga once upon a time. Great callback, and I really liked this twist. I thought it was very poetic to have her ending being giving blood to somebody, when her villain arc has largely revolved around trying to take blood by force. Toga also stitches up her wounds, and talks about what an impact that Uraraka's had on her life, revealing that her motives here are twofold. One, she doesn't want to lose Ochako, but two, she wants to go out on her own terms. As if Uraraka survives, she'll want to lock her up for life, whereas Toga wants to be able to live free, so it's better to die than to either have a life where Ochako's dead, like Twice is dead, or where they're playing cops and robbers forever until one of them loses for good. So Toga's resolved to save her and die in the process, which is rather bleak. The scene's actually really beautiful and has a nice little commentary on mental health and how society often creates its own monsters by making it so painful and dangerous to be different, even in this world of powers and quirks. It's kind of a beautiful ending, honestly, even if I wasn't a huge fan of this particular storyline overall. I'm also rather shocked that they actually pulled the trigger on killing Toga off. I felt like it was going to be a given that she would be a character who survives, but I guess not. And I liked that it was a really unpredictable moment for me. I enjoy when shows do that, in ways that make sense and aren't just forced for subverted expectations' sake. Moving on though, here we come to the storyline I was most eagerly anticipating. That is, of course, All Might versus All For One. I feel like I've been waiting for this battle for so long at this point. I had a bit of a feeling way back when you saw him leave Mission Control, but when he turned up to relieve Ida and Shoto, that was when my hype well and truly kicked in. After all, this is a massively plot-relevant storyline. It's the Night Eye prophecy. Will All Might die an unspeakably horrible death, or will he be like his apprentice, being able to smash that future to bits? Here we go. So we pick up 20 minutes in the past, back during the Derby and Twice/Toga confrontations. Just after All Might had sent off Ida and Shoto to try to stop Derby from exploding and killing everybody within a 5-kilometer vicinity. Oh my god, this is just pure hype. At the start of the season, I did not expect that this fight was going to happen, I'll tell you what. I really thought that his fight in Kamino was going to be it for him as a hero, although I guess you could argue that since then, in the background of a couple seasons, he's had this little arc of slowly getting back into his groove and remembering that you don't need powers to be a hero. Hell, he only needs to hold off All For One for a little while anyway. And he doesn't even really need to do very well in the battle, because with the mood that All For One's in, with Shigaraki's mind now corrupting his and replacing cold logic and reason with rage and bloodlust, I think that even if he manages to easily one-shot All Might, he would still try to toy with him, to make him suffer for as long as he can and forget somewhat that he's on a timer. After all, Night Eye said it would be an unspeakably gruesome death. So surely this would be the death that he's talking about, because Night Eye wouldn't be recognizing a young All For One wearing those clothes. That being said, Night Eye's future prediction did rely on the idea that Deku would have been killed by Overhaul, right? and thus the quirk One for All was probably lost forever. So I think already enough would have changed about the future that any prediction that's set after Deku's survival no longer has any relevancy or accuracy. So in hindsight, the original prophecy was probably just going to be Shigaraki torturing an All Might who'd already given up after the death of his former sidekick and his new student who he gave his power to. Now that would have been one dark future, hey? All Might then powers up with his new Iron Man suit, which for some reason just made me think of a pimped out Dark Bunny from Arthur. And here we finally come to the title screen. Woohoo! And you know it's going to be a good one when it's this late into the episode. Almost halfway through. Back in Mission Control, the police dude's panicking because he thinks that All Might's going to get obliterated on live stream. Oh, ye of little faith. And it seems All For One is of the same opinion, that All Might has no chance. So that's the first clue to the audience that All Might does indeed have a chance. Also, I love that All For One in his voice, the way he thinks and speaks, he's becoming more and more like Shigaraki. He's the one who's getting replaced. And it's really quite clever writing. We've been told a lot that Shigaraki's starting to bleed into his personality, but I think this is the first time we really see it firsthand. And it's really cool and intense and kind of scary. A vision of what could happen should he manage to merge fully. Superpowered with a creepy body and an unstable personality. Yikes. And I think I like even more that All For One actually knows that his personality is being influenced and changed, but he just doesn't care because he hates All Might that much that he's lost all sense of reason. Fair enough. Honestly, All Might did change the game, destroyed his crime rings, sent him underground, then beat his ass twice. First, making him a baked potato, and the second putting him on life support in a max security prison. For All For One, finally killing this guy, even if he had no powers, that would be cathartic as all hell. But also be very frustrating for him to just smirk and laugh at you, even with that difference in power. Which he does. And the battle then begins, and true to form, All For One comes out swinging, thinking he can just easily take the one shot, but nope, All Might fights back. And I gotta say, it's very cute that all of All Might's new attacks are based on the Class 1A heroes. He uses a Red Riot type shield, Black Whip ropes to stab into All For One, and then Charge Bolt style electrocution, which doesn't really hurt him as much as it prevents him from moving and from regenerating his lost limb. Then All Might has time to shit talk All For One's tactics, and we learn that he had this made by that girl from America, his first sidekick's daughter. I've honestly forgotten her name. And that not only that, he fully expects that he's going to be able to win this battle. He's not fighting a long defeat, he wants to win, and he thinks he can. Maybe not with a KO, but by outlasting him as he gets younger and younger. This whole section's so good. He wraps him up with some cellophane ropes, he kicks in his head Sugarman style with a big power shoe, courtesy of his car, and then he just keeps kicking him, and then shit talks him more about how it's a sad state of affairs that All Might's life has come to this. He's a man in his late 50s, beating up on a helpless young man. Oh, I've missed All Might in his hero persona. He has such an aura about him that no other character in the show has. With his constant positivity during his fights and the trash talk that's just genuinely funny, it keeps these really dark moments lighthearted, and I like that. Also, I love that we see that tactical ability that All Might has. He wasn't just a big one-punch type of guy. Yes, he was strong enough to take down everybody, but he has great tactical awareness too. He knows that All For One's fighting differently now, that the old version would have just kept on flying past, maybe laughed at All Might as he did so, but now he's a changed man. He's let the unhinged into his mind and now he's vulnerable, he's going rabid. And of course all of these facts come together to make All For One so angry that he uses a bunch of quirks all at once to try to kill All Might instantly. And whilst this attack's pretty damaging, and apparently shatters All Might's left wrist and collarbone, ouch, he can still fight thanks to his battle suit. And best of all, he can still trash talk and beat All For One's ass. All For One's arrogant and self-assured. He tells him that he knows that he's trying to stall him, but he's so strong that he knows he can still kill him and make it in time. But as we know, All Might is built different. And he just keeps on going, smiling, laughing, sucking him in even further. I really love that they intercut his early meanings with Nane here too. The whole origin of the idea of becoming a symbol of peace. And really how All Might, even now without his quirk, is just back to the young quirkless man he was. He still has that heroic heart. He's still the symbol of peace, like he says. Everybody has a job to do, so he can handle this. Also, injecting him with acid, ouch, that's gnarly, to the point that All For One has to destroy his own body and reform it, and thus gets even younger, just to get rid of it. The only problem is that All Might, by this point, he's not looking all that good. He's taken a lot of damage, but it feels like he is getting closer and closer to his goal. He's leading All For One away from UA, he's damaging him and increasing the speed of the rewind, he's being live streamed, and he's giving hope in his final stand. Oh, what a Chad. And I love that he finally loses the eye shadows as well. We've seen him return to that quirkless boy that he was before, but the symbol is also back. I also loved the montage of Class 1A as he's thinking about them to give him the strength he needs to keep fighting, and then cutting over to Deku with Shigaraki and him sensing All Might fighting, which in turn will, I suspect, give Deku the will to keep going as well. And it's just, oh, it's all so hype. The music, the ethereal voice singing in the background, oh, I loved it, so good. And then the season ends. Oh, goddamn. How you gonna end me on this cliffhanger? I mean, it was awesome, but I need more, you know? I'm not ready for the season to be over. And I'm certainly not ready for this to be the final season ever. I mean, that's gonna cut deep too. And so yeah, that's the end of the episode. They tease an All Might death here, in that last clip with the bloody card or the comic, but also I think that's teasing a Bakugo return, because that was his card, right? And we know that they're giving CPR as the fight's ongoing. You wouldn't do that unless he's coming back, you know what I mean? So now, we have to wait a year, lovely. And so with all that being said, that's the end of the video, the end of the episode. I'll just remind you these have all been my opinions, and I'd like to hear yours. What do you think of the episode? Did you like it? Hate it? I'm curious for your thoughts, so make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know.